All right, well, let's talk about another player that had a lot of success out there, and that's Silva Saarinen. Definitely on a bit of a hot streak right now. So I want to know, is Silva Saarinen the best candidate yet to be the Kristen Slayer? Definitely every time a player kind of makes their way up the FPO charts, we talk about, okay, is this the one that's going to take things over, beat Kristen consistently? We've seen other players have a certain runs of success, but obviously Kristen's been very good this year as well. So I want to know, is she the best candidate yet? And what has been the key to her quick rise on tour in the last year and a half or so? Hunter, what do you think?
I think she probably is. Mainly, if you're looking at the major stats categories for this year, there's only 2 players that are in the top 10 in all of them, and that is Silva Saarinen and Kristen Lott. And where Silva gains her edge is on the putting green. If you look at it, she's second in Circle 1X putting. She's also second in Circle 2 putting. Kristen is 6th in both. When we look at players who Kristen's went toe-to-toe with before, Holland Hanley, 12th in C1X, 8th in C2. Evelina, 40th in C1X, 20th in C2. Missy, 10th and 4th in those stats. So all of those players, I think the Circle 1 putting is where Silva shines, because what it allows her to do is we've seen players multiple times be able to get themselves in position, and then Kristen hit a big putt, and that little slip in stats cause a missed putt that then leads to another missed putt that leads to a bogey when it could have been a birdie, or cause a missed putt that allows them to lose a stroke to Kristen, or they miss a putt and leave a door open. We've seen it. I think a lot of cracks start on the putting green and then spill into the fairway, versus Silva is just ice cold. Like, there were so many opportunities where she missed her birdie putt, and it's like, here we go. This could be where Kristen takes 2, and then she makes a long par putt. She has a 42-footer for birdie. Kristen's just inside of her. Like, here we go. This is where she's gonna miss it. This is gonna be the strokes, and then she cashes it. She's just cool, calm, and collected. Her only thing against her is she can't throw the disc far. So there's just some courses where that alone is gonna keep her back and make it harder. But when you just go skill for skill, I think that she's very comparable to Kristen.
Okay, Gary, our European correspondent, not convinced, perhaps.
Yeah, they met 8 times this year so far, and Kristen has won 6 of those times. And in the 2 times that they met, that Silva's won, it's only been by a combined 3 strokes. I think Silva's in this conversation from like more of a recency thing. And I'm not downplaying her overall potential, but we can hardly say that 2 wins is enough to be a slayer of Kristen. Also, if she takes down a major or 2 in the upcoming major sprint, we can have a conversation then. But I think that her quick rise can be attributed to a definite skill that she has, a lot of the stats that Hunter had mentioned in his thing as well. And she made some very clutch putts down the stretch against Kristen, but we're also missing other members of the Euro squad. Like, where has Evelina been all this time? If she was in the field, would Silva be as dominant? That's a good question to ask. I'm just not fully convinced that Silva is the next big thing yet, because we've seen other players come to the forefront for a year or 2 and then kind of fall away. And I think she lacks a serviceable forehand. She tends to crack down the stretch at times. She's had moments where she's just yanked it into the woods on a late, drive. And it also feels like she lacks confidence in herself. In her post-round interview, she said that she didn't know that she could play that good. That doesn't sound like a slayer to me. It sounds like someone who's trying to find their game a little bit. And maybe that will change with her first win on the U.S. soil. So I try to look and see any other player that could fill the role of a Kristen slayer. And it wasn't Holland, Missy, or Silva, but I did find one who beats Kristen more than any other, and her name is Kristen. Kristen has the highest ceiling of any FPO player, and when she plays well, she wins. But when she makes unnecessary mistakes and someone else plays bonkers, she loses. No one forced her to throw OB on hole 10 and shank her second shot. No one forced her to miss a 25-foot birdie putt on hole 11 or a poor drive on 14 and 15. Only Kristen and her broken pinky toe can outplay Kristen at this point, and 2 wins a slayer does not make.
Okay.
Question said best candidate, not is Silva. Something to think about there.
It's true. It is a good point.
Say, is she the Kristen Slayer? Is she the best candidate? And I think we all
passionate about it, man.
The best candidate's Kristen.
He's I don't mind that take. Moses is the only one that can beat Kristen consistently herself.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think we do this in all of sports. It's when you have the greatest of all time, or even someone that's just playing really well, we look for the next best. We look for the next up to try and beat them. And frankly, I don't see Silva as a dominant FPO player in the same way Kristen has. I mean, we're arguably seeing the greatest of all time. I think Silva's going to slot into that top 5 FPO group the same way that Holland, Missy, and especially the way that Owen used to be. I think that's my comp for Silva, is a younger, backhand dominant Owen Scoggins with a higher ceiling for quite a few reasons. I think number one, the standout feature is obviously putting, 88% from C1 at the preserve, which is fantastic. But it really is that lack of distance that holds her back in a way that kind of Owen was as well. And I think the reason she's risen so quickly is because of that consistency. She does almost everything well. And I think one thing to kind of bring up, Gary, you mentioned, is like the mental strength that she has. And I know, in a lot of ways we would say, oh, well, her saying she didn't know she could play that well and everything. She doesn't speak English that great. Like, I don't think that she is articulating really what she means in the ways that she's thinking it, at least. And so I think like the mental toughness that she has is more out there than what we're actually seeing. I think she's going to continue to get around 4 wins per season, but I don't think she's going to be on Kristen's level. I don't think she's going to dominate the FPO field for a majority of events. I don't think that there's a consistent FPO player to beat Kristen at this point. I do want to shout out Valerie Mandujano, 12 down final round. That was incredible. Kind of a similar player, used to be at least. But yeah, shout out to her.
True. There was a time maybe looked at Val that way. Maybe she's the next Kristen Slayer. Brody, wrap it up for us. What do you think about Silva's potential to beat Kristen consistently?
All right. I'll start by this, because I think maybe people are watching highlights, or maybe people are listening to what other people have to say that maybe don't know about FPO, and so they just think it's fact and they just say it. I think that's what's happening right now on this podcast, because there's a couple things. First and foremost, she can throw far. This idea that Silva can't throw far, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Owen can throw like 100 feet shorter than her. Like, it's not even close. Silva multiple times was the farthest thrower with Kristen on the card. Was the farthest thrower on the card multiple times. She was the farthest down the fairway. Yeah. Does she throw as far as Evelina or Henna or maybe like Ella or Holland? Probably not. But sometimes she outthrows those players as well, because if she hits her angle right, it will go farther. I'll put this to the test too. Give me Hunter, give me Silva, one throw. Let's see who throws farther. Let's just see. So that's the first thing. She does throw far. Also, there was some comparisons to some other players. Here's the thing, guys. Go back to years ago, and I told you, I saw this person on the putting green. She does not putt like a normal FPO player that we have seen in the past. Her putt is different. It's almost kind of like Haley King. I think that's a good comp. Back when Haley King was just cashing putts all over the place and making it look very easy, that is Silva. Silva would have beaten Kristen also multiple times this year had she not crumbled. That is her biggest thing right now, is her pressure. And we have all been there. When you step onto a tee pad and try to throw a shot, it is different than trying to make a putt. A putt is slow. A putt, you have to eventually say, do it. Where when you're throwing a shot, you start a run up. You start movement. Putting, you're just here and you're nervous to start the downwards to go upwards. Silva, that has been her problem. She's proven it the last 2 tournaments. It's not a problem right now. Will it be a problem in the future? I don't know. But as of right now, she is the best candidate. She went back-to-back against Kristen, and she would have beaten Kristen a couple times this season already had she not fallen off. The only thing I have against Silva, get off your phone. I mean, every time it cuts to her and she's not throwing a disc, she's on her phone. I don't know what she's looking at. The scoreboard can't be changing that often. We got to get her off their phone.
To Moses' point, maybe she's trying to figure out what people are saying about her.
She's a constant translation up.
Yes, Hunter.
I have a rebuttal. Well, I've seen it in person, and I will say Silva's disc might go farther, but that doesn't mean she throws as far, because she might have to shape a shot more than someone who can just throw a hyzer.
Do the laws of physics cease to exist on your stuff?
Can we get a quote card for that?
Can someone quote that, please?
I'm saying, if I step up, like if Brody and I step up to a hole and I throw a hyzer flip full flex shot that gets me out in the middle of the fairway, and Brody throws a chip hyzer and my disc out drives him, that doesn't mean I throw farther.
Means you
on
threw
that
further.
hole you did.
On that hole I did, sure. But I'm saying
it doesn't mean you have a stronger arm.
Exactly. So Silva's going to have to shape a shot more, which leads to potentially more danger. So as the courses get longer, the players who can actually throw farther have an advantage, because they can be throwing a hyzer flip to flat that hyzers out, where she has to throw a full shot to get to the same landing zone. So it's like, these other players might be able to go and eclipse her by 50 to 100 feet and can choose not to, versus she doesn't have that luxury. She's
So
having
you're
to
saying
max out.
if somehow the FPO had to play a demanding course, she would be in trouble for
I'm saying when the courses get longer. We've seen it before. There's just certain courses where I don't think she's going to be as much of a threat. But back to Gary's point where he was saying Kristen takes herself out of it. What I was witnessing was Kristen doing what Kristen typically does and pushing, yet the other player refusing to budge. And I don't know how much that affects what happens to Kristen. Because like sometimes Kristen would be stepping up to a putt and the player wouldn't have just cashed a 42-footer in her face. Or she would have made a putt and the player wouldn't have immediately made it after her. So there's also a little bit to that, to where Kristen's used to, I do this, the other player crumbles. And she does that, the other player stands strong. Who knows how much that's playing into, oh, I have to chase this person more than I can just play my game and it's going to come to me. Which, as much as people want to say that's not what happens in FPO, that's what happens in FPO a lot of times, is Kristen just does what she does. And then next thing you know, Ella Hansen collapses at Waco, or Missy throws OB, or Holland misses an important putt, or whatever happens. Versus this time, what I saw in the last two tournaments is, I've said it, Silva out-Kristened Kristen. Where I felt like Kristen was trying to be Mrs. Consistent and was just met with an equally as consistent force and didn't know what to do. That's what it felt like to me watching.
That's tough for me though, because if Kristen is the best we've ever seen from like an FPO player perspective, she had the big birdie on hole 9, and so she takes the box on hole 10 and she just throws it out of bounds. I mean, I'm not saying
weird shots.
Yeah,
but after hole 10, she then goes birdie and starts charging Silva, which typically.
On 11, she misses a 25-foot putt for birdie, and she had the
maybe
chance.
12 and 13. When does she go back-to-back birdies to Silva's pars?
It's
from 4 to 2.
It's 12 and 13.
So 12 and 13, she takes those. One of the two, Silva airballs the putt and has a comeback putt. That's something that an FPO is typically missed. So now all of a sudden it's typically one. And then they both birdie. I believe it's 14 or 15. And that's where Silva steps up and cashes like a 45-footer in her face. That's another thing that historically doesn't happen. So usually in that scenario, Kristen's now tied. Instead, she's back 2. And like, that's something where I think Kristen never isn't used to seeing that. Kristen's used to, I do this, I push, I charge, I have the lead. Instead, she push, she charge, I have 2 strokes to still make up. I think that's where it just gets a little weird. I'm wondering how much that might be affecting Kristen.
Can I pose something out there?
What, another, you're going to ask
an idea
Moses to
from
join
you or
you?
your thousands of people live chat?
So we have the main event. Right? Connor versus Kelsey Ace Challenge. That's the main event. But we need something. We need something to be like leading in. You don't just start with the main event. You need something before. Silva versus Hunter distance contest.
If we can get Silva,
There we go.
We just have to figure out a way.
Silva versus Hunter distance
she will
contest.
be in Europe.
Yeah. Should we just? She can be
Virtual
challenge.
Virtual distance comp.
We'll just get around the field live.
Virtual distance comp would be electric. I'm not going to lie.
Distance competition.
We might have to make that happen in some capacity.
Just have her chucks a frisbee out in the field. Be like, all right, how far that goes, Silva?
that could be a good time.
We might have to
We
do
get
it.
her to submit. Just like, here's my max distance,
and we just don't show you until after
she
you
throws
throw
it. I'll take 5 shots against it. I trust. I think I can do it.
It could be a good time.
So my bet was 1v1. My bet was one shot.
But I'm saying she gets as many shots as she wants. She submits. This is my farthest shot, and I have 5 shots to beat it. I don't know what the distance is.
Does she crack 5? Do you think?
Let's do 3. Let's do 3.
So.
Let's do 3 shots. I don't like my chances with 5. 3, I like my chances.
Driver.
I think I gotta throw 425 and I win. That's what I think.
Maybe. I don't know. Comment down below who would win.
Way to find out.
Do we need to make it happen? Silva, if you're watching, we've issued a challenge.
We got to get this to happen with Silva versus Hunter. We got to get this.
If you want to submit it,
we'll be commentators, Moses.
She's throwing like standstill backhands like 280.
Yeah.
She can rip. I've seen her throw 400 feet.
I can throw a standstill backhand probably 320 to 350.
It's true.